Ain't nobody used to give a damn. Yeah, I had to go and make a different plan. Yeah, guess who didn't get included? Even though you made me better, yo, I strictly do it for the fam.
Anyways, back to the slasher movie stuff.
Yeah. We cannot go on.
We didn't mean to go on the tangent, but it was just a nice little thought that I had.
It was necessary.
It was necessary. Moving away from it, though.
There are just so many different possibilities people could do with the slasher genre that a lot of people are just bygoning in so many different ways. Like, Shweebes, you probably have thought about making your own horror movie villain. What would be the scenario for your own horror movie villain in a slasher genre type film?
In a slasher genre type film? Trying to stay away from cliches, in that sense, I suppose. Well, in this case, it'd be very similar to Party Hard, which is one of my favorite games. If you guys listen to this podcast, go check it out. It's amazing. It's on Steam. A little self-promo there. Just kidding. Not for me, for the game. But, in that game, which would be very similar for how I'd want this movie, is the guy more or less just gets pissed off at society and crap that keeps going on. So he takes it upon himself, put on a mask, grabs a knife, and just starts shanking the fuck out of people. But he does it so stealthily and is very rarely caught. And for the few times that he is caught, there winds up being like crooked cops and shit, and the storyline is just amazeballs. So I would go along with something similar to that. There's no, well, I suppose in a weird way there is like sexual content involved, but not around the character itself. And he's actually pissed off at it, very similar to Jason, and just goes and stabs hookers in the face because he can. And by the end of all of this, he's like, you know what? No matter how much filth I try and be rid of this world, there will still be so much more later. And inevitably just gives up his masks and says, fuck it. But as he goes, it's amazing because he starts, convincing, or corrupting, rather, other people to think in this same fashion. So he essentially winds up with this giant cult of people that believe in this same way of being. So even though his mask has been, you know, tossed away in a drawer, there's many more people wearing his same mask. So kind of like a V for Vendetta thing, but more so.
Mixed with Saw.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was a Saw guy there. But that would be like my perfect movie right there. Put that in a movie. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Give me my popcorn.
Phoenix?
My turn?
Mm-hmm.
There was a book I read a long time ago that it had a slasher-esque theme to it, but it was something much more than that. What happens is these kids in high school end up getting a chain letter. At first, they don't think anything of it. They're like, fuck it, it's a chain letter. Throw it away. You know what I mean? And they get it through their phone. They're like, ah, stupid. And it warns them, if you don't do it by this period of time, you will die. Kids start getting violently killed. These few kids realize it's real. They start doing these different things, and then they're insane. Just, I think one of them was like, one of the guys had to cat or something like that.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah. But it made you do terrible things, or it killed you. But that was the first book. The second book was even more amazing, because the entire point was the person they thought was causing all of it, which was human, was actually being led by a supernatural being who is seeking to move all those involved into what they call the box. It's a point of eternal damnation for completing the quest, doing what it wants.
Wow.
By completing the chain, you go to hell.
Oh my god, it's Hubs!
Did I miss it? Did I miss it?
No.
I'm not wearing headphones.
No, you did not miss it.
Oh, I'm here. Yay!
about damn time. I mean, welcome. Welcome.
We're doing a slasher movies right now.
Ooh, slasher movies.
Yeah.
Whose favorites are what?
We did first slasher movie ever seen, and what age were we when we... Shweebe, you were...
I was like... When did you and I first start dating? I was like 17 when I first saw my first slasher movie.
Phoenix was 3.
I have a backstory. So, my sister and my cousins were pretty close growing up. I was 6 years old. I remember it vividly. And this is where night terrors started for me. It was Nightmare on Elm Street. I do not remember which one. I believe it's the one where they're in the mental asylum.
Oh, that's number 3.
And my sister promised me that I could watch this because Freddy Krueger, like, they spent months talking about this movie. And I was hyped up and I had to see this movie because Freddy Krueger reminded me of Wolverine, and I thought he'd be the baddest ass villain ever to exist, right?
You are.
So she's like, okay, we'll wait till mom and dad go to bed before we start watching it, and then we won't tell them that we're watching it. We're just going to watch it. Okay, I'm down. I'm 6 years old. I'm totally giddy. I watched this movie, all right, and I do not believe the things that I am seeing. This is not Wolverine.
No, it's not.
From 6 until, I would have to say, like 13 years old, Freddy Krueger haunted me. And I mean menacingly, and never stopped.
Oh, man.
Followed me through my dreams. I had dreams where my best friend's brother, like, it was weird. It was just like what you'd think would be a Freddy Krueger movie. It was like a dollhouse, and we were all little doll people in the house, and his brother would be in his bed sleeping, and then all of a sudden his fingernails would fall off, and claws would grow out of him, and he'd become Freddy Krueger, and he would start killing members of the family, like one by one, and it was me and my best friend left down to the last, and he would come at me, and then I'd wake up, you know, and then, like, it was like that all the way up until I was 13 years old, and then Wes Craven's New Nightmare came out. And I hadn't seen a Freddy Krueger movie since I was 6 years old, right? Because he'd been haunting me. And my buddy, my best friend, the same one that's in the dreams with me, his family rented it on, was it pay-per-view back then? You could rent movies on pay-per-view back then.
Those were the days.
I went over and I watched it with him because now they didn't know that he was my night terror. He was the one that tormented me, but I still loved him. Right? He was the baddest ass villain ever, just like I thought he would be. How can you kill something that's in your dreams?
Right.
So I go over, I watch Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and it's not like this campy, funny Freddy Krueger movie like all the other ones are. This is an actual horror movie, where it's a demon that takes the shape of the most recognizable horror villain, film villain, or whatever, to scare people in their dreams. And it's Freddy Krueger, and it's like an actual horror movie, and it freaked me out again at 13.
Oh, no.
Wes Craven is my favorite horror director, right?
Oh, yeah.
May he rest in peace.
And then comes, Raimi with Evil Dead and changes it. For me. I mean, not chronologically, but for me. So that's my little backstory about Freddy Krueger.
I want to point out I watched Nightmare on Elm Street at 3 and no night terrors.
No, I don't know.
That's because you're an anomaly, Phoenix. We've been over this.
Exactly. What did I say earlier? It's different per person.
Do you have a history of sleepwalking?
I have a history of sleep talking.
Oh, yeah, he does.
I sleepwalk. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but there were nights when I would get up in the middle of the night and I would stand at the foot of my parents' bed and just stare at my mom. It was never my dad, it was always my mom, and I just stared at her like Damien until she woke up.
Hello,
and then her freaking out that somebody was staring at her would wake me up, and then I'd go back to bed. So I don't know if the vividness of the dreams is more present in a sleepwalker. I don't know, but whatever it was about
Depends
Freddy,
on the psyche.
I was not ready for what I saw at 6.
You at least picked a good one to go on. 3 is one of my favorite.
Mine too. You know, which one is the one with the school bus on the where the ground gives way underneath the school bus?
I don't remember.
I don't know if that's the first one.
Come on, Phoenix, you know this
Second
one.
one.
The second one. My favorite, my personal favorite, outside of the mental asylum one, is the one where what is it? It's the dream warriors.
Oh no!
Dream Warriors is 3. It's the asylum.
The Roach Motel, where the girl she's like punk rocker chick and she lifts weights.
Oh no!
She's in the gym late night and actually she fell
number
asleep.
4.
Yeah,
It's Dream Master.
Dream Master. That's what it is. Where her boyfriend turns into the motorcycle because Freddy Krueger fucking takes over her boyfriend's.
That's
Yeah,
actually number 5.
that one is my favorite. Well, that's the same one as the Roach Motel, isn't it?
No.
They're not.
The boyfriend survives the 4th one in order to impregnate her for the 5th one. Killed in the 5th one and fed to the sun.
All right, I'm just gonna say all of them are my favorite. Fuck it.
It's a good genre to fall in love with.
And then when Freddy vs. Jason came out, I was
no!
I was like a little schoolgirl. Senpai, notice me.
Just so you know, the numbers are now officially split. 2 of us did not enjoy Freddy vs. Jason.
2 of us did.
2 of us loved it.
Which 2 loved it?
Well, you're one of them. Take a
I know,
wild, hairy guess as to the other
Me.
Freddy vs. Jason.
You like the movie? I like it. I don't love it. There's a difference.
I loved it.
I loved it. I
think
was
they could have
like,
done a better job making it more Freddy and more Jason. They took it too neutrally, I think.
no, I think what they were doing is trying to set up a sequel. They wanted to play
That's
this
the
one
big issue I had with it.
to see how much money it would make them to cross genres like that, or not genres, but to cross villains like that. And I don't know how it did in the box office, but that's how it felt. At the end of the movie, it felt like they were setting up a sequel, and if the numbers weren't big enough, they weren't going to do it.
I believe that. Do me a favor, Aaron.
I will.
Your curtains. You need to close them. Because the reflection right now looks like a grudge face. Just chilling.
I can see
I can
it.
see
Oh my
it.
god, that's
I can
scary.
see it. It looks like she's holding up her hand. I can see it.
Yeah, it's a little creepy.
It's Jenny's playing Bioshock. And
That explains it.
that's Rapture in the background right now.
It did look like the grudge face, though. That's creepy. That's a good one.
Oh yeah,
That
that was
totally-
legitimately one of the few that gave me.
We're back to golden curtains. Golden showers.
Do not look behind the gold curtain.
The Grudge was one of the few that gave me legitimate shivers because of it. That noise and just it was one of the first international horror movies I've ever seen. So the style was so drastically different from the Americanized version of
They're
horror.
very graphic.
Well, not
like,
just graphic. I'm
graphic,
used to
you say.
music's leading to
Well-
certain events, and they're like, nah.
Hold up. Graphic, just say.
All right, hold
Just
on.
saying graphic there, Mr. Hubbs.
Hold on. So, like, when it comes to Freddy versus Jason, or the Freddy Krueger or Jason movies, or any of the American horror films, they're graphic, right? You see people get stabbed, and you see people blown apart, and you see Freddy's head turn into something 10 times larger than what's actual a normal human being to eat somebody. It's all stylized and comicized is not a word.
Comments. It is now.
It should be. Anyways, like with The Grudge, or no, more specifically, The Ring. Like the videotape that they watch, you see a finger pushing down on a nail, and the nail goes through the finger, and the fingernail pops off.
Ew.
That's like, it's like realistic. I don't know how to.
Ew. That's nasty.
You know what I'm talking about, though?
I'm not going to now.
it's supposed to be real psychological,
Right.
and not just touching on the horror aspect. It's actually delving into what really bothers people.
That
Right.
bothers
Seeing
me
a
greatly.
sea of maggots squirming bothers people. That entire movie was designed for the purpose of going, what gives you heebie-jeebies? Oh, really? Here's a little bit.
Seriously though, like I remember that scene vividly where you see the finger going over the nail and then it just presses down and the fingernail pops off. The nail goes right through the finger and it's just for a split second. You don't even get to see, like, in your mind. Right, it's your subconscious. Like, in reality, it's a split second. You don't see the whole thing.
Oh, you
But
want a
it's like-
split second now, do you?
It's like the Fight Club thing where Brad Pitt's showing his junk. He splices his junk into the movie film reels. That one
Really?
frame.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
You gotta watch Fight Club. He explains the whole thing.
That's
He
hilarious.
snips it and he puts his junk in one frame of the film. So subconsciously you see a dick, but you don't mentally register it until later.
That's funny.
And that ties into the Rings, the whole psychological, you're seeing it, but it's only split seconds of different visuals, but they're all like really nasty visuals.
Yeah.
And then like halfway through the movie, when she pops out of the screen, you're putting it all together. Like, oh my God, there were maggots and a finger going through a nail and blah, 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 blah. And that, like, Freddy Krueger scared me. That just like creeped me out. You know what I mean?
Oh, you
I'm
want
sorry,
creep
what
out
is the-
factor? I got something for you guys.
What's up?
Parasite Eve.
A Serbian film on repeat.
You